I don't have like a work personality and a home personality where maybe I should, but I don't. And I don't know. It's just being an empathetic person, I guess. I not to lean on that as a crutch, but I
It's who you are, you know?
it is. My challenge was it was more being able to check out at the end of the day. And I would go home and stress about work. Oh, I should have done this, I should have done that. And over time, I realized that nothing is going to change between now and tomorrow. Leading ain't easy, the show that cuts through the noise and gets real about leadership. I'm Ryan Calkins, Marine Corps veteran and founder of Reframe and Rise, and I'm here with my good friend and fellow leader, Erny Epley, founder of Bus Pro Network, as we unpack the highs, lows, and hard-earned lessons of what it actually takes to lead with character in today's world. It's not another highlight reel or fluffy leadership pep talk. We're talking about the stuff most people don't, the doubt, the pressure, the people problems, the pivots, and the personal growth that it demands. Because the truth is, leadership looks good on paper, but in real life, leading ain't easy. Welcome back to Leading Ain't Easy. Today we wanted to focus on what we wish we knew before leading others. And we had a couple of people reach out to us last week, and they were wanting to know, things for aspiring leaders or soon to be managers and kind of what we did to prepare ourselves before stepping into those roles, and things that we kind of experienced along the way that maybe we wish we had known beforehand and tried to avoid. So that's kind of where we wanted to look at today, as kind of a leadership 101 type of things to know before stepping into the role for the first time.
You know, I often think to myself on hard, long days, I come home and I'm like, why in the hell did I do this? Why am I here? And why I wanted this so bad, and I worked so hard, and I made so much sacrifices. So just out the gate, I want to try to scare people away, because if I can scare you away, then leadership really isn't for you. But I'm all jokes aside, there are some days like that, but it's not every day. It is both rewarding and opposite of a rewarding, whatever that is. It's tough, man. It's great. It's all those things wrapped into a big, beautiful, stinky package. But I just got to remind myself, there's peaks and valleys to this. Some days you're on the mountaintops, and then some days you're chasing down a bunch of fires got to be put out because your email was hacked and a phishing email was sent out. So by the way, if you're on my email list and you got that, don't open it. I know this episode's going to come out later, much later.
Get it for a month.
I know they're not going to get it for a month, but if you're a month behind your email, like some of my colleagues, that was a joke. It's a joke. Don't open it. Sorry, Ryan. I didn't mean to tank the episode right away.
No, you're good.
Yeah. So one thing I wish people would said to me before Ryan hurts himself, before coming into leadership is, understand that there's going to be good days and there's going to be bad, and there's going to be no rhyme or reason on when it's going to be good and when it's going to be bad. I know now, in the spot that I'm in, that there are certain months that are just going to be tough. The industry I'm in with the school bus industry, I know July, August, and a little bit into September is going to be really tough. April, May, with all the, end of year field trips, that's going to be tough. So whatever you find yourself in, do your best to be real analytical about your year and understanding, like, okay, yep, this is August. This is going to suck, right? And then I've found that to be very helpful to approach the day better, to understand that, to just be more prepared for it. What is something, Ryan, since you're being quiet, what is something that you wish people had told you prior to getting into leadership? I just gave mine, which was the whole peaks and valley thing. What about yours?
I wish somebody would have told me before getting into leadership that it isn't necessarily I mean, it is how much you know, but it's more how to balance relationships and work with people and different motivations and trying to you know I don't want to say corral because it's not like everybody goes off in their own directions, but it's you're trying to keep everybody focused on where you're headed, but also manage different uh like I said, motivations and personalities and try to keep this cohesive thing moving. And it's like obviously you still have to have the technical piece and
Right.
some level of expertise, or at least enough to speak intelligently on something. But it, the thing that is more vital than knowing how to do something is how to manage the thing with respect to everybody that's involved.
If I could jump in real quick, I have a question because I think, thank you. I think this is subjective to whatever industry you're in or field you find yourself in. For you, I'll ask you. I'll give my kind of breakdown and then ask you what yours is. I think, and the question is, how much of your management career has been technical and how much has been per people, right? The what you just talked about, corralling people,
Mhm.
um, for lack of a better term, right? So in my experience, it's probably been 20% technical and 80% just trying to bring the team together in a cohesive unit.
Yeah, no, I think that's probably a good breakdown in terms of percentage estimation. Because like I said, obviously you have to have some level of expertise or know-how because they won't respect you if you're like, "Oh, well, go do this thing." And they're like, "Well, you don't know how to do it." But knowing it, it's once you have that enough know-how to speak intelligently on it, like I mentioned, it's being able to manage to it and help others and put them in positions to succeed. And it's not even always, providing guidance as a subject matter expert. It could just be providing people the resources to be successful and giving them the things that they need to succeed without necessarily having to be I guess more proficient in that subject. Like you want to stack your team with people that know more than you, or at least in certain areas know more than you do, and then put them in positions to succeed because you can't know everything.
100%, especially in operations that are huge. I mean, there's just so many moving pieces. So to that end, I wanted to ask, what got you into management? What that, and I'm not asking you. I mean, I am asking you, Ryan, as you're
Hmm.
sitting across the counter from me. But I would also ask somebody who is asking me, "Hey, how do you get into leadership? What did you do?" my my question first would be, well, why do you want to get into management? What's your motivation to getting into management? Is it money? Is it prestige? Is it power? Because if it's those three things, that's going to go away really fast and it's going to get old really quick. You can make almost just as good as money working in a position of that isn't management, with overtime and things that aren't available to management in some cases. In some cases we know that the scales are pretty tipped the other way, but certainly in the government industry, and in every public agency I've been a part of, there's not a whole lot of disparaging in as far as pay gap between management and employees. So I think for me, what got me into it was a real heart for people, and really trying to put my money where my mouth is, because coming up, I thought, well, I could do that better. If I was leader, I had this, I had that. Little did I know, I was way outside of my league, right? I was writing checks with my mouth that my behind couldn't cash. But when I got here, I still try to keep that at the forefront. Like, hey, I told myself I could do a better job. And why did I tell myself this? Maybe it was bad management. Maybe it was bad leadership. And what did they do wrong that I could do better? So, long way to ask a short question is, why would you get into this? And why do you want to get into this? If your motivations and your intentions are not pure and they're purely led by greed or just the bottom line, you're going to have a rough go of it. And That's just the bottom line for me. So again, why did you get into it, Ryan?
I got into leadership and management. I onto it because really it was the kind of psychology of everything. Like I was fascinated by how I mentioned before that you have to manage to motivations, and different people have different motivations, and everybody responds different to any conversation. Like obviously nothing is the same, and you can't apply the same learned principles and techniques across the board. It just doesn't work. So I don't know. I was able to learn and grow and kind of adapt based on that, and with the skills that I've gained and everything that I've done in school, it was just being drawn to those leadership positions, and being I don't know. It was just that it wasn't about me. It was about that desire to be in service of others, but also being in a position to help others on a deeper level. I don't know if that makes sense, but I think what really drove me was just like I'm the type of person that goes out of my way, and often at
Mm-hmm.
the expense of myself. And I don't know, it's hard for me to motivate myself, but when I have others that are relying on me, it gives me more self motivation to know that I don't necessarily get my well, I don't even want to say I don't get my own stuff done. It's I put my own stuff on the back burner to put myself out for others.
Hey, you
Um,
sound like a real team player, Ryan.
I try to be a real team player.
It's in. I know I was kind of put that out there as a joke, but in this podcast, I'd say you've been more than a team player, even more so than I have. So if anybody's, if this was an interview, I'd say you nailed that portion of that, Ryan, being being a team player. But again, something that I've always kind of led with is, or I have trouble with transitions, so I always say something I always say, but it's not something I just want to transition to something else. So forgive me. I'm getting better at this. Um, and you're seeing someone grow in real time. But one thing else, one other thing I would tell aspiring leaders is to quickly get used to holding yourself accountable for other people's actions or your teammates' actions that aren't necessarily directly related to what you do. Now, there is the ultimate umbrella of, this department is on your shoulders and everything that happens is ultimately your responsibility. And that is true. That's the way the public, that's the way your team's going to see it. Despite there being 3 degrees of separation between you and the boots on the ground, there is that overall, hey, what are you doing here? Something, especially when the proverbial shit hits the fan, right? They look to you and like, hey, what are you doing about this? When the fair response is, man, I don't know. That person was literally 20 miles away on board a school bus and I'm here at my office. Like, what do you mean? How is this my fault? Right. Early on in my career, I had that reaction to a lot of things. And yeah, I realized very quickly that all it did was put me back and put me like on the defensive. And people, as soon as you start acting defensive, they're going to say, oh, he's acting defensive. There's something, if you can began to be comfortable saying, you know what, I don't know what's happened. I have to look into this. And by golly, follow up and look into it. But doing so in a way that doesn't say, hey, it's not my fault. They were over there and I'm over here, right? No, the public doesn't want to hear that. They want to hear you take responsibility to some extent, right? Or at least to give them a, hey, I understand what you saw. I understand what your perception of this is. I have to do my due diligence. Let me look into this and get back to you, right? And then sometimes you do have to go back and say, look, I'm sorry, that is not the level of service that we certainly expect of ourselves, and whatever. But being comfortable with that moment right there, apologizing, having the egg on your face in those moments is something that it's not fun. It sucks. But that's the position you're in. Being comfortable with holding your entire department accountable or your entire team accountable when things don't go right, and being okay with sorry, even though you had nothing to do with it. Well, you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
no, I don't know, like, I've never had an issue taking the blame for things and, like, receiving the shit end. It's been much more difficult to hold the team accountable internally than it is for me to say, "Oh, yeah, fucking throw that blame right here on me, I'll take it."
I don't know, man. There's something about like, I did not do that. That is not my fault, man. Screw you if I'm going to take this. You know what I mean? Like, I guess it's the difference in our personalities.
Well, I mean, maybe part of it is boot camp and having drill instructors screaming in my face that everything else seems tame when somebody is like, "Oh, you screwed up." I'm like, "Yeah, well, I did," or
I mean, I
or
gotta
they
say,
did.
I'm a lot better about it now. I've certainly grown in this area. Or now I'm with you on that. Like, I'm quick to be like, oh, sorry, let me see what we can do, blah blah blah. Where, early on that wasn't the case for sure. So another thing I would tell aspiring leaders is really have a vision and a goal. And I know that sounds pretty, oh yeah, no shit, we all have to have a goal, right? But understand what you think leadership is, right? And then also, before taking that next step, have a mentor, talk to somebody who has led or has been a manager, preferably somebody who's led a bigger team and a smaller team, so you can get that full scope. Or if you get two different people, um, so that, and then also go into those conversations realizing that you might not know everything, that your ideas and perception of what management should be might not be the case. There are so many times where I get feedback where I'm in the position I'm in, and I just can't share what the answer to their concern is, because sometimes it's private information, it's employee, it might be an HR issue that I can't say. That all I can say is I followed up,
Mhm.
and that's not an acceptable answer to most people, right? I've since learned that if I go to my superiors and like, hey, what the heck, man, and then if that if that trust has already been established, which it has in my case, in my current case, and they said, you know what, we're taking care of it. Boom, all good enough for me, because I know how it is to be that person on the other end of that conversation saying, hey, we're taking care of it, and we followed up. And I understand what that means, right? So go into that conversation with your mentors and really pick their brains on, hey, what's the upside? What's the downside? This is my perception of what management is at this company. What is it really that you can share with me? And if you've established trust with that leader or that manager, your eyes can certainly be open to a lot of situations that you would have never known before.
No, the trust piece is key, and there was one piece where we talked about before with the technical versus psychology, and or not the psychology, sorry, the management piece, where a lot of experience that I've had, most people are technical experts, and then they struggle with the management of individuals and that part of it, where for me it's always been the opposite, where it's much easier to work on people's motivations and providing resources and putting people in positions to succeed, but then feeling like I'm not enough of a technical expert to validate myself and what I'm saying, which comes back to a piece of imposter syndrome that we talked about before. But it's been the opposite, where I feel like sometimes I'm playing catch up to try and learn something, so I feel confident enough in what I'm talking about to manage the other piece of it. And it's just, in my experience, it's been very I guess kind of the opposite for most people, to where they feel like they're technical experts and now they're struggling to figure out how to expand on that and become a leader and a manager for others in that area.
Is Mulder okay? I know. By the way, applause for going through that. I know he was. I heard the doorbell ring, and I'm like, 3, 2, 1. I had
Yeah.
an internal for Mulder. Dude, you did really
I was
good.
hoping it wasn't gonna come through these noise canceling.
No, it's fine. It wasn't super distracting. It makes me want to go give him a hug and pet him.
But Mulder's doing great. Thanks for asking.
Yeah, for sure.
For those of you listening, Mulder is my beautiful Australian Shepherd.
He gets hair everywhere, and he's quite sassy. until you get to the table, and then he was your best friend when we're eating at the table. So you know what? That could lead into our next point. If you are promoting in place, right? You're working at ABC garbage truck affiliates, and you are a driver, and you've been a driver for 15 years. You got the technical aspect down to a T. You do your job correctly, and they're going to say, "Hey, John Flanagan, it's time to promote, bud. We're going to make you manager of routes," or whatever the position titles are there. Know that that comes with its own set of pros and cons, as unless there's pros and cons to moving up, whether you do it in-house or you go to another agency,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, but one of the ones that I want to kind of focus on is the one in-house that I've seen. I've never done it myself, but what I've seen throughout my career at agencies I've been employed by, the biggest challenge is going from friend to boss. That's tough, and I got to say, if you're gonna do that, be ready to lose friends. I've seen it every single time, Ryan. This isn't something that's all high 90s. 100% of the time that I've seen this, and of course my sample size is small, so granted, but in the dozen or so situations that I've come across and seen that, in every situation there's been times where that person has had to become the boss of friends, and then friendships, some as long as 30-35 years, man, have just been gone because of that. So just be aware of that. If you're going to promote in place and you got buddies that who are now going to say, go from hey buddy to hey boss, they're not all going to make the cut, man. That's just the sad reality of it. I don't know if you have something to add to that, but I just, something that I really wanted to put out there that I wish people had told me, and that I've given the same advice to people who maybe that are promoting within the department that I'm running, saying, hey, your buddies not going to be your buddies anymore. Not all of them. Some of them will. Some of them won't. That's just that's the job. That's the reality.
No, the buddy piece is hard, and being promoted from within. I think also coming from outside, or not even necessarily outside, but not in that area. So like you mentioned drivers, and I was a manager of drivers, not having been a driver myself like you were. And coming in, and I'm responsible for telling these guys how to do their jobs, right? Essentially. But I never took it as that approach because they're the experts. I don't have a commercial driver's license. Who am I to say, oh, you're doing this, you're doing that? So I tried to focus on what I knew. Like I could look at something and say, oh, that's not safe. Or, things that I stayed in my lane initially on. I'm going to manage to what I can as an expert in this particular thing. And as I learn more about the expectation of the driver, what the rules are, studied the commercial, driver handbook. So it's like I could get to a level of competence in things. And, when I came in, I had no idea about air brakes and, the delay and everything else. And I saw these videos that changed my entire outlook on getting in front of semis on the freeway as we're slowing down. But just kind of being able to learn about all of that, what a proper brake check looks like, or brake test, all of those things that come with experience, to where it's like, okay, I still don't have a commercial driver's license, because I chose not to, since it drops the BAC down to 0.1 or O1 or whatever.
Well, that's
what?
a concern.
Yeah,
Wait a minute. We're
I can't
friends?
even sniff a beer. Yeah, dude.
I'm just playing.
So anyway,
yeah.
But, obviously the more you learn, the more you can expand on what your comfort level is in holding others accountable. And like, if I don't know something, I don't want to tell somebody else, oh yeah, you're doing this wrong, or whatever. I mean, either way, I don't really like to tell people that they're wrong. I like to encourage improvement, but allow them to do it themselves. So I think, you have the challenges of internal promotion and working up, and balancing the relationships that you've already made. But then it's also coming in as an outsider, or, just new to an area, and then trying to manage building those new relationships and not overstepping when you don't know what the hell you're talking about, and kind of adapting as you go.
Now I could certainly speak to that as well, because whenever I promoted from the highway patrol to the school district scene, I found myself in charge of a shop, and I've never intentionally turned a wrench in my life. It's always been through necessity, not through anything other than I got to get this bolt off for whatever reason, right? I say that to just that much mechanic experience. I could hook up jumper cables, and I know if you hit them together, they'll spark really cool and loud. You know, that's about the extent of my mechanic knowledge. However, I found myself over a 2-person shop, and man, I got to say, when it was something that I commend you for, being someone who came up, been driving commercially since 2004. Like, it's bread and butter to me. So I often take that piece for granted. Um, and props to you, but I know the challenges you face there, and it's exactly like you said, man. Yeah, first off, it's establishing that trust, establishing that, hey, I might not know how to fix this engine, but I know it's not supposed to smoke like that. I know it's not supposed to sound like this, just, and then establishing that. A good way to start that is if you find yourself technically managing folks who have an expertise outside of your scope, ask them about their job. Ask them, hey, how did you fix this? I have about 20 minutes here. If you could explain it to me, I want to better understand the hard work you do, right? There's and you do want to do that, right, as a manager, but there's also a caveat to that in your own mind that, okay, now I know every time that he says he's changing the oil, this is exactly what he's doing, and it takes about this long. Right, because they'll tell you within the course of them saying, "Oh yeah, we're gonna take the plug out the bottom, drain the pan, and then we're gonna take the filter out, all the whole thing, and then it takes about 30-40 minutes." And I don't know if it takes that long to change the oil on a commercial vehicle. I'm just saying, so don't roast me in the comments, or roast me in the comments, whatever. But then you get an idea of how long it takes, right? So
Yeah.
the next time he says, I have about 4 services lined up, I know that those 4 services, that's going to be his whole day. Right. And that's if he doesn't get distracted by any kind of emergency repair. And so now I'm starting to understand the technical aspects of that job. So establishing that communication point, getting the just the very bits and pieces of the technical aspect, at least what you should expect in terms of delivery and things of that nature. I want to kind of, we talked about promoting in place. I also want to give some pointers on if you're coming in to a management position at a agency or company that you never been before, you don't know anybody there, or you might know 1 or 2 people there. We've covered it briefly on this podcast, but just be prepared to go in with both eyes open, and don't make any be hesitant to make changes day 1 or day 2 or week 1 or week 2. Obviously, if there's something unsafe happening, make a change, right? I'm talking about the small operational changes that seem benign, right? And you might have a group of people coming to you, say, hey, can we say 10-8 instead of 10-4 over the radio? Sure, seems benign, right? But you don't know that a district, you know what I'm saying? There could be implications of that you're not aware of. So on something that isn't, directly safety related, or going to be a catastrophe to our service that we provide, get the full scope before you make those decisions, because it could be that the most charismatic people, that's what I found too, coming in as management to unfamiliar area, is the most charismatic people are going to be the ones who kind of, rub elbows with you first. And I'm very much a guy, and so trying to understand why the motivation is there, why they're doing that. And then also get the full scope before you make any decisions and then of course do your best to gain their trust. And the way that you gain trust is honestly just being authentic, being you, leading with intent, keeping your intentions pure. Of course, everyone, and look, we talked about earlier, you have your vision and you have your goal. That's great. But understand that needs to be malleable, right? That needs to be fluid, and you don't know the whole scope of the department. So be prepared to change that, and don't be so rigid in the approach.
No, I like that. And adding on to kind of, I guess if we're giving it advice, one thing that I've done throughout my career is a heavy focus on relationship building. And every
Yes.
job that I've gone into, there are really two groups of people that I always try to focus on building relationships with. Not necessarily bonding, but building professional relationships with. And it
Mm-hmm.
was the group that has the highest influence, not necessarily the loudest people, but the ones
Mm-hmm.
that actually help with the most influence, and then the people that have been there the longest. Because the ones that have been there the longest obviously have seen everything. They've seen the culture changes, the positives, the negatives, uh and I don't go into these relationships blindly and take everything at face value, because people can become jaded over time, or everything just kind of, it can be exacerbated in a toxic environment. So I look at these two groups, like I said, not taking everything at face value, but I think that you will get more knowledge and historical knowledge on everything from those two groups. Is the ones that have been there the longest and have seen everything. If they are jaded, try to ignore the negativity, but take away the data that is important and can be used to get things done, and then lean on the influential people that can help move your stuff forward. And like I said, and Ernie said, the charismatic, the loud people aren't necessarily the most influential in terms of getting stuff done. They're just the ones that command the most attention because they're drawing the attention to themselves. Those aren't the ones I'm talking about. I'm talking about the people that actually help move things forward, and the ones that have been there the longest. Take the combination of those two groups to really help push your initiatives and goals forward.
I want to build on something you said in that when you said you know taking this feedback I'm not directly quoting you obviously, but what it reminded me of is be ready to take feedback, even in any package in which it's delivered, especially negative feedback. um a lot of the culture nowadays is, F the haters, they don't live in your head rent free, blah, 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 blah. There's a
Mm-hmm.
lot of push for that, especially with the younger generation. Um, but in a professional environment, if someone's passionate enough to scream and yell in your face about something, or scream and yell in a meeting, may not be just directed at you, but to feel that about, really don't be so quick to just be like, that's just a hater, or that's just, whatever, like I'm not listening to that. Really diagnose the data, dig deep, push past all the f-bombs and all the screw yous and all that stuff, and really diagnose, does this person, is this credible, is this real a great critique? Yeah, man, maybe I am, you know goofing off too around too much with the office staff up front and not giving enough attention to the shop, or maybe I am goofing around in the shop too much. Maybe I am going out to, having a barbecue for just this group, and I didn't realize, that was, when I was walking by and they were having, barbecuing in the shop and they invited me, that I was taking part into something that was exclusive, right? Like, just un- taking the feedback and the criticism, and really diagnosing the data and really understanding, like, hey, there's something here and I need to change, instead of just, like, giving them a middle finger back and not not changing anything, or not, or
Mm-hmm.
just shutting the shit down right away. Being okay with negative feedback in any kind of package is gonna do nothing but make you a better leader. That's hard. That's tough, man, because all of us have an ego. Some of us have a bigger ego. All of us have feelings. Some of us, me in particular, I wear them right here on my sleeve. So it's not easy. And if there's a one trick shop to it, if there's a one thing that you do, hell, let me know what it is, because I still struggle with that, to be honest.
And then, well, having conversations with people, you
Mm-hmm.
you need to influence a situation in order to have a better result. And I don't want to say manipulate, because it can carry a negative connotation at times, right? And I mean, I guess essentially you are manipulating, but you're not doing
Yeah.
it with ill intent. And I have
Right.
worked for people that there is an ulterior motive, and it just comes off disingenuous, and it's like, okay, well, what do you really want? But what I mean in terms of I guess being manipulative is more getting people to it's really more buy-in than manipulation, because when you're manipulating, you're trying to get somebody to do something, right? Positive or negative. But with the buy-in, you're trying to get somebody on board to help you move something forward. And I think that piece is I healthy manipulation, if that's a thing. But it's just like you said, it's the authenticity, and I don't know, people are smarter than a lot of people give credit for. And when you come off as this fake person, like, people will read it, and
Absolutely.
it's going to be a lot harder to regain any trust that you lost from being this snake oil salesman, and I don't know, it's people see through bullshit. Like, people have a bullshit
100%.
meter,
Yeah.
and once you start to go down that path of manipulation, trying to sell, I guess, selfishness,
Sure. Yeah.
it's hard to build back.
I would say that the positive manipulation is in my very title, the title that you've carried, is directing, right? I serve now as a director. I direct work. That is literally in my title. It's at the scope. So I think a positive way to look at manipulation would be directing, and of course everything that goes with it. Directing with your intentions that are pure, keeping the goals of your environment, agency, company at the forefront. Ours is, I am very much student driven, because I work in the school industry. So what does that mean? It starts with the students being at the top, and then from there we're going to go student service and student safety. They have to work 1A and 1B, right? And everything else, believe it or not, can be directly linked to that, whether it's the direction that we're taking with our organization today, with this implementation of maybe perhaps a new software, perhaps a new direction on your route, so it's more efficient, right? Some people are like, well, I don't like going down Smith Street, it's like, that's the most efficient way. You know what I mean? I'm just don't want to get caught up in the minutia, but understanding and communicating that at the forefront as a director or as a manager, if you're managing work, and of course we're getting into the operational weeds, but it's fun. I like being there because it is a complex puzzle, multi-layered, very complex puzzle to try and get the work done in a way that is fair and equitable as possible. I say fair and equitable as possible because sometimes there is no fair solution to the work distribution in some areas. And I know I'm kind of going off a little bit, but it just I'll end with where I started. Positive manipulation is actually just, I see it as directing work, and that's our jobs.
No, it
So
is.
you know what?
And
Oh, go ahead, sorry.
no, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna ask you a question.
Go ahead. Yeah.
What are what are some tactics, going back to taking the feedback, and I'm sorry to go backwards, but going back to the feedback thing, what are some tools in that has helped you be successful, not taking it personally and just looking at the information for what it is and not the package that it comes in?
I think it is much easier to look at it objectively after the fact.
Yeah.
In hindsight, when you're
Right.
like, oh man, I really blew up there. No,
Yeah.
it's still something I struggle with, because I feel like I give so much of myself in everything that I do, that it's hard not to take things personally when, it's not even necessarily feedback. I don't know if it's just, and I don't even want to say people disagreeing with you. It's not like a combative thing. It's just, when you take time to write up a proposal, and then somebody looks at it and they're
Yep.
like, oh, that's shit. And you're like, well,
That's what I was
oh,
about to say. Yeah, this is my
yeah,
baby. I've worked
and
on
it's
this
like,
hard.
I spent a lot of time on this. But I don't know. I think the more emotionally invested that you are in things, the harder it is to separate that feeling of personal attachment. So when you get criticism, or I don't know, just not everybody being like, yeah, that's a great plan, let's move forward with it, then it's hard to not at times. And I don't know, I guess throughout my career, it's just been trying to get ahead of it, knowing that not everybody is going to be on board, and even those that are may not see eye to eye with the approach or direction, and maybe they agree with the overall idea, but they have an idea that moves it along in a different manner. And I think not being so attached to your effort that you get lost in, okay, well, maybe there's a better way to do what I'm trying to do, and looking at the big picture that if this thing gets implemented, whether or not it's all your fingerprint, it's still a good thing, because that's a win. Like, this idea that you had is there. It may not be exactly what you thought when you drafted it, but the whole point is something advanced. And you know hopefully it's for the betterment of everything, and you can say like, yeah, I helped, or just know that what you sought is out there. It may not be, like I said, it may not be the exact blueprint that you had in mind, but it's still a win.
Okay, we're running out of time here, but I do want to introduce or one last topic and get your feedback on. And as you were talking, I you kind of said something that reminded me of, for new leaders or someone going into leadership, be prepared to move in a way, and when I say move, I mean navigate your professional day and your work environment in a way that you could be transparent. And when I say transparent, I mean maybe explain yourself right away and your intent in what you're doing. That's why this kind of builds off what we said earlier. Lead with intent, lead with purity of heart, because there are going to be times when you're going to be called to task, whether by your superiors or wherever in your work environment, where you have to be transparent and be willing to be transparent to say, this is why I'm doing this, and this is why this decision was made. Now, there are some times, especially in a fast moving operational environment like transportation, you're not going to have time to explain it, but be willing to have that conversation later. Or, hey, John, I need you to go pick up at Horner Elementary, because this is just, we have a bus down, and why is that work going to me? Look, I understand it seems like I'm always giving you the work and you're the one that I'm picking on. I'm not picking on you, buddy. You're in that area. I need you to get there though, please. You know, and then have that conversation. Hey, when you're done with the route, come see me. I'll stay late if I have to have that conversation with you today after your route, because I know that at the end of that route, this driver's going to be piping mad. He's going to be pissed because 2 days ago he had to work again late, or you know what I mean? He had to go out of his way. And I don't want to wear that out, right? I don't want to burn him out on that. So I am going to stay a little later today. I wanted to go home at 4. It looks like I'm not going to go home till 5:30. It's okay. This is important. He's going to come off that bus. He's going to be upset. I got to be able to meet that energy with the appropriate energy, right? So that's what I mean by navigating with transparency, being ready to explain yourself at the drop of a hat. That's the example I gave was obviously to someone on your team. It could be that I get a call from upper management, senior management, executive management. Hey, Ernie, we heard that 3 weeks ago this happened. Why did you make that decision? You got to back up, 18 days. So how important is it to you to lead with transparency? And what are some ways that you've developed to really boost that effort?
Well,
And
you
I'm
know
sorry
me.
if I
I
put you.
mean,
I
well,
am
no,
picking on
it's
you.
it's just, I'm in thinking about it, my issue isn't being transparent, it's being too open.
Ah,
Yeah.
yes, there is a
So,
flip side to that coin, right?
yep. And it has gotten me in trouble a lot, is that there are times where it's just, I should not have overshared, and yeah, like, for me, transparency has never been an issue. I am an open book. I don't have like a work personality and a home personality, where maybe I should, but I don't. And I don't know. It's just being an empathetic person, I guess. Not to lean on that as a crutch, but I
It's who you are, you know?
it is. My challenge was it was more being able to check out at the end of the day. And I would go home and stress about work. Oh, I should have done this, I should have done that. And over time, I realized that nothing is going to change between now and tomorrow. Like I used to lose sleep over not getting certain work done, and over time it's like, okay, well, I can't do anything until tomorrow anyway. Nobody's going to care. Nobody's going to be responding. And this isn't to say like when shit hits the fan and you have fires to put out or whatever,
Right.
sometimes,
Yeah.
or you have a pending deadline, sometimes you'll put in extra hours. I just mean on the day to day, the routine stuff, it's like you could have always done more, right? But
Always.
for your own health and sanity, it's like at the end of the day, like separate, cut it off. And the things where I still lose sleep on occasion isn't the work. It's the relationships and the conversations and knowing, oh, I have to have this tough conversation tomorrow. And then I go through every single scenario possible on this person's reaction and how the conversation goes. And it's never as bad as I think in my head, because in my head it's like World War III, everything happening. It's never that bad.
And that can be stressful. I've had those very, very real times, and oof, man, it 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 usually. I was just having this conversation with someone the other day about progressive discipline, and I don't like that word discipline, right? I prefer to say, hey, we're gonna have an improvement meeting. We're going to it. I may say it or I may not, like, but the reality is we're going to hold you accountable for this because the reality is you screwed up. And I would hope that if I'm screwing up, people would come to me because my goal is to get better and to always improve. I'm never going to reach my final form, right? I'm always going to be trying to evolve and trying to do better. Um, so letting them know that, and then letting them know like this is our opportunity to show you an area where we need to see some improvement here, right? We need to get you to work on time. How can I help out, right? And then giving them the tools to succeed um is really important.
Yeah, no, it is.
There was definitely a direction I was going there, and I don't know if you noticed, but the exact moment that my eyes went blank and glossed over, I was like, "Shit, I was going somewhere with that?" And it went away.
No, I saw
It's
it.
been it's been quite a day. I'm sorry, and you knew what I was dealing with pre-recording.
Oh, yeah, he got
Yeah,
fished
yeah,
like
that
crazy.
sucks. Yeah.
So
So again, if you got that email, delete it.
yeah,
Sorry.
no.
Go ahead, Ron.
The last piece of advice that you would give is what?
Don't open phishing emails, and no, leading ain't easy, but you don't have to do it alone. Oh, we're not ready to close yet? Is that Oh man, the last piece of advice would be honestly just go into it with both eyes open. Be a sponge, man. Don't take everything that from one single source. Like, don't listen to this podcast and only this podcast. I mean, please listen to this podcast, but
Only this
don't
podcast. No.
yeah, don't take everything I say, don't take everything Ryan says and just build what you think is a carbon copy of. Take I mean, like I said, be a sponge, man. Read leadership books. What are some great leadership books? The
Start with
emotional
why.
intelligent. We'll say. Oh, I'm sorry, we spoke over each
Start
other.
with why is a great one.
Start with why is a great one. The 7 habits of highly effective people. Yeah, emotional leadership. Or no, emotional intelligence. I'm doing a great job with these titles,
Yeah,
by
yeah.
the way.
Leaders Eat Last. Another
Yes.
Simon Sinek. That's a good book.
So books, great way to get into it. If you don't like reading, audiobooks, podcasts, take a little bit from each and make it your own, because ultimately, in order to be authentic, in order to be transparent, in order to lead with intent, it's going to have to be your own. If you try to be Ernie Epley, God forbid, but if you try and it's not going to work, because I'm not even a good Ernie Epley. If you try and be Ryan, it's not, you know what I mean? Just understand that, go into that, take a little from everywhere, and build it and make it your own and rock it until you
Yeah.
can't.
So hopefully you took something away from today that has been beneficial, we would love to read anything that you have to say in the comments on feedback, whether it's positive or negative, if it's directed at Ernie. And, hit like and subscribe, and please let other people know that we exist. And if anybody has questions or anything else, reach out. We are
Topic
available
ideas.
to respond, and we love engagement.
All right, Ryan.
So
Let me
until
do it
next
this time.
time, leading ain't
Leading ain't
easy.
easy, but you don't have to do it alone.
Thanks for tuning in to Leading Ain't Easy. If something in today's episode resonated, please do us a favor and share it with someone else who leads or aspires to lead. Because honestly, none of us have this figured out, but we can all get better together. If you're a leader or professional feeling quietly stuck in your career, visit reframerise.com. It's a career and leadership coaching firm where I work with veterans and other high achievers to realign their work and lead with purpose. Again, that's reframerise.com. And if you're looking for leadership tools, training, or support for your transportation department, check out Bus Pro Network, where Erny helps school transportation leaders across California build safer, stronger teams. Please subscribe wherever you listen, leave a review, and let us know what topics you'd like us to tackle in the future. And remember, leading ain't easy, but you don't have to do it alone.